What's going on, YouTube? Earth Power here with Xboom. Welcome back to the booth, my friend.
Hello, guys.
And we are here
Um,
to talk about the deck profiles for the first two rounds of the top 16. We finally made it, guys. 5 weeks, maybe even 6 weeks at this point, with delays and things of play-in tournament. Glad you guys stuck through it. Our top 16 is decided. Wave Strikers making it through. Force Wave Strikers making it through at the end of last week. And Xboom and I are here to basically kind of keep the same structure of deck profiles that we had from the play-in tournament, where we're just going to kind of give you guys 3 or 4 deck profiles in a row as we kind of make it through the top 16. That way we're not loading you guys down with a ton of videos to watch for deck profiles, and then you guys can go back and watch them before every match. So yeah, here to talk about, I think, the deck that I continue to regard you for, Xboom, in terms of just the guy I would assume has the expertise of this deck. This is definitely your baby, I think, if there ever was one. And I took a ton, and I'd say that IDC 31, CVH and I piloted some really funky versions of Water, Fire, Nature, and a lot of that having to do with some of the fun techs that you've been trying to test out for Water, Fire, Nature. But
yeah,
yeah,
I even faced CVH in that one.
yeah, yeah, and he ended up
Fun.
running through Swiss for sure. And then I don't know, did you take a game off of him in the top 8? I can't remember.
No, we didn't face in that.
Yeah, yeah, but you ended up winning
I
that
won anyway.
tournament
Yeah.
overall. Yeah, yeah, it doesn't matter. But yeah, so I want to get your thoughts on our list heading into season 3. We're sticking with the Finnish format. For those of you who still don't know kind of what we're working with, check the description down below. Soulswap limited to 2, Corile limited to 2, Slash Charger limited to 1, and Bombazar banned. But otherwise, everything else is fair game. What do you guys? I guess I'll start with your initial thoughts, X Boom. Of what do you think of this list and moving forward for season 3? Um,
I
what?
think overall the list looks like very solid. I'm comparing it to the that was last season's dead list,
Yeah,
and it looks more solid. It has less Earthstorms,
yeah,
so less memes, but more dreams maybe. And like otherwise, it looks fairly similar. Like one less lucky ball and stuff like that. But I think the overall game plan is still the same. Like
yeah.
to try to hit bronze armor on 3, and then 5 is uh, fairly strong usually with Stomp. But now there's less Stomp, but there's the Ancient Horn, so Ancient Horn is gonna add a
I
lot of gas.
Yeah, I think the feelings, and again, this deck is literally, I drive this deck on a hope and a dream 9 times out of 10 when I'm piloting it. And Xboom coming into or not Xboom, you're Xboom, Earthstomp coming into
Yeah,
season 2, I felt like Earthstomp was just like this kind of hidden gem MVP, and just this 5 for 8,000 power brick of a body that was just not going to be able to be stopped. Turns out when you're improving all of the decks as we were from season
mm,
1 to season 2, Earthstomp isn't as strong, I think, as it would initially you would initially think, with cards like Spiral Gate, Miraculous Snare being ever more prevalent
mm,
in our decks as we continue to move forward. And then something I noticed through IDC 31, and we'll have to get CVH's thoughts on the booth on this deck at some point, but I felt like Earthstomp just it's glass cannony, right? Like you swing with it, and then you're really just riding it to victory at that point. If you don't get like if your momentum isn't just super far ahead when Earthstomp hits board and you swing with it, I feel like it almost sets you up to lose. And I kind of
I
noticed
think
that through a few games in season 2 as well, even in
I think
IDC.
in most games where you get the swing with a stomp, like you're already winning, so it's kind of a win more card
Right.
in that sense. But as a one-off, it can still be like good because you can find it with rebirth if the situation is good for it,
Yeah.
and there is no cards for the opponent, for example, and it can just try to evade one top deck and then swing.
Yeah. I
One
find.
thing I like a lot is the Ancient Tornad
Yeah.
because it adds a lot of depth to the deck and can like make like rebirth into Ancient Horn into untapping all your mana into something else can like have a 16 mana turn that can swing a game easily.
Yeah, that
So
that card continues to feel incredibly strong, and I don't know, man. I still kind of sit in my season one vibes of like the old school, like Ben Flugoev Champs 2006 deck, where he's running four twin cannons, a couple of Scarlet Sky Terrors, where the top end of this deck was just super high, and he was leaning on cards like Energy Stream and Holkus to draw. Well, obviously, Lucky Ball I think is the better addition than Energy Stream for a deck like this. Like I find myself wanting to add more Lucky Ball. I find myself wanting to have more Ancient Horn, to kind of keep those like high hand, high field advantage cards accessible. And I feel like trying to toolbox this deck a little bit. And maybe I'm falling off the deep end. Maybe this deck is just metaing itself. But Rebirth, I mean, obviously is strong, but I wonder how strong it really is in this deck versus just having that outright strong creature like Twin Cannon, like Ancient Horn, like Lucky Ball, and having more of those cards. Because those are the cards I feel like I want more often than not, and we're obviously running one of each of the creatures and just a couple of rebirth. So
Yeah, as the architect of this deck, I of course I think Rebirth is stronger than those twin cannons. Mostly because it comes in faster usually, and it can like in the aggro mirrors, it can do a double role of removing things and providing a threat to the board.
right,
So, but I think like this looks very solid, and the Rebirth allows you to have like those one-off things like the Ancient Horn and Earth Stomp. Maybe one Corile would be
yeah.
5 drop possibility, maybe in place of the Earth Stomp.
That was our on the
There's
cusp card, and I find myself wanting to cut the ninth two drop a lot of the times because you have cards like Spiral Gate to kind of weave in there. Not that you necessarily you want that ninth creature. I think a lot of the time on two, but Emerald felt weak, at least playing it in IDC, and then there's some of the Essence Elf techs as well. But I can't find another two drop that I like more than Pig or Bronze Arm or Gauntlet.
Emerald is mostly for the Rebirth target, so you have a defensive option at 2,
Yeah,
because 2 is very common in aggro decks. So if you still have one shield left, then you can maybe Rebirth for the Emerald and possibly put a
right,
surfer in there. Like
right.
that's the dream.
Right,
But
right, right. But yeah,
it's an option.
Corile was that card that I think we were on the cusp of adding, but just finding room in a 40 card format is difficult, I think, to say the least.
You're always missing something in 40 cards. That's
Right.
the also the fun side of 40 cards. So you will always have room to tinker around the edges.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, that's Waterfire Nature. I'm excited to get your thoughts on the other two. So this deck will be facing off against 5 Civ Control. We are feeding the first play-in leg winner to the first place winner of season two. So those two will be facing off, and X-Boom will be joining me in the booth here in a couple of days to narrate that one. So stay tuned for that. And we're going to move on to the last two decks of the first two rounds of our top 16. Lightwater Alzonius. This deck I think is very similar, minus 2 or 3 cards. I don't know if you've got both lists pulled up right now, but I think it's outside of 2 or 3 cards, maybe difference total. And I don't think we added anything new. I think it was maybe the Unicorn Fish swap. I know we're running 3 Surfer now and 2 Bingle, but I think otherwise this deck is very similar to Season two's list.
Yeah, it looks like an Ailzonius deck. It's an aggro killer, and against other kinds of deck it might struggle a bit, but against aggro it should like have a field day and just cruise to victory.
Yeah,
Especially
this
with 10 triggers also.
Yeah. A lot of triggers. Alzonius being the untargetable guy. That this is the untargetable deck, right? And I think that's where it kind of shines, especially in a control meta. Um, you can commit to Alzonius, and as long as they can't go wider than you, Alzonius should just take you to a win. And we're pitting it up against Mana Burn. So this deck has seen a couple of changes kind of as we've come and gone. I think we cut a few defensive options here. We went down to 3 Juliana. We added the extra Cranium Clamp now that we're playing with more Clamp in this format. The Ice Vapor's still here. And then adding Fighter Dual Fang. And the reason we pitted this up against Alzonius is because and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the general consensus is that Alzonius kind of beats the mess out of this deck. Alzonius is a very hard card for this deck in particular to deal with.
Not really. I think it's like kind of the opposite. I think this deck should be favored against
Really?
Alzonius. Yeah, but it depends a bit. Like there's 2 clamps. the clamps are really important in this matchup. Also, the dual fang is really important add to this list, so you can actually kill the Alzonius.
Yeah.
I think it might be. It's a bit hard because there's no corpse charger for the Belix, so you don't have an infinite like loop against the Alzonius, and since Soulswap is restricted, that might make the difference and swing this to Alzonius a bit. But in
Gotcha.
50 card decks, like in the unrestricted format of Soulswap, their Fortress is favored against Alzonius because Skype swaps just like out values and out tempos Alzonius.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense a lot. Yeah, Corpse Charger I think is a card, and again in the 40 card list we had to end up making cuts somewhere. I think that was a card
Yeah,
that was on the table for this deck, and yeah, I can definitely see that. Especially the deck I piloted for IDC 32 was the Force of Foul. You guys will be catching that here in the next couple of weeks as CBH and I start to upload those videos from our not great runs, but runs nonetheless of IDC 31. Corpse Charger and Belix, a very, very strong anti-tempo, anti-aggressive combo. Because you can continue to filter as you block with Belix. The decks struggle to get through it, especially if they just have one big power creature. But yeah, I never really thought about that going into this, that was... and obviously we built these decks 2 months ago. A month ago maybe even, but...
I think with these versions, the Alzonius will be slightly favored, just because there's 3 Sky Sword and only 2 swaps, so that engine isn't as potent here.
Yeah.
But the Cranium Clamps will be very helpful, so those might be very crucial.
Yeah, so Bingo being crucial for Alzonius. Yeah. So, but yeah, we really wanted to pit these two against each other. I was very interested in that matchup, seeing, like I said, the things that I was read that like Alzonius was basically just a card that this deck couldn't really answer, and I never really thought about it answering it in the sense of, yeah, you can just let it stay on the board and cycle with Belix. I think that's a fun way to answer it.
Yeah, or just like generate more shields with Sky Sword, and that's the answer. So Alzonius can't, like, if you run into 0 shields and you just generate 1 more shield and Alzonius is alone, it can't, like,
Yeah.
can only break the 1 shield and it gets kind of stuck.
Yeah,
there.
absolutely. But yeah,
this will not have that fast of a shield generation with the 2 swaps.
Yep, absolutely.
Should be a very close matchup.
You heard it here first, guys. I will let you give your predictions. Being new to this, obviously we've recorded all of this. I kind of have the all-seeing insight of what how these matches are going to go. But I'm interested to hear your initial takes before we get to the match. We've got Water Fire Nature versus 5 Civ Control. Who do you think takes it? What's the record?
I think Water Fire Nature should like beat the 5 Civ. It's not consistent because it's 5 Civs.
Right.
So,
and 40 cards. Yeah.
Yeah. 40 cards make it more consistent, 5 Civs less consistent, but I trust my creation here, like what you have been inspired by. So I trust my Water Fire Nature to take this.
Absolutely. And then Alzonius versus Mana Burn. Who do you get?
I think with these decks, and can you go to the 5 Civ one, the Mana Burn once more?
Mana Burn.
I don't see Logic Cube, which is one thing that I think can be crucial because you can't find the clamp for 4, so that's not going to be a consistent strategy. So just based on that, that one thing will make my prediction go for Alzonius here.
Awesome. So. All right, guys, stay tuned. We're going to try to be posting polls for the entirety of the top 16. I think the general format is to upload deck profiles like this every Monday, and give or take everybody's time constraints and when I can get our friends like Xboom here in the booth. We will be posting 2 matches for the top 16 every week, and try to make it through our entire top 16, hopefully a little bit faster than we did last season. So stay tuned for that. Coming up next, we will have Water Fire Nature versus 5 Civ Control, our first match of the top 16, followed by Alzonius and Light Water Dark Nature Mana Burn here at the end of the week. So stay tuned for all that, guys. Xboom, thanks for joining me. I always appreciate having you. And until next time, guys. Peach.